All right, today we're diving into something that might sound a little technical, but trust me, it's a huge deal. We're talking about a fundamental shift in how Malaysia manages its public money. It's called MPSAS, and it's basically a brand new financial rulebook for the entire country.
But before we get into the weeds, let's start with a really big question. How does a country actually know if it's financially healthy? I mean, is it just about the amount of cash it has in the bank on any given day? Or is there a much, much bigger story to tell? Answering that is one of the toughest challenges for any government.
Malaysia's answer to that question is MPSAS. That stands for the Malaysian Public Sector Accounting Standards. This is the new official rulebook. The key thing here is that it's based on accrual accounting, and crucially, it lines up with international standards. So this isn't just some local tweak. It's about Malaysia stepping up its financial game on a global level.
Now this slide breaks it down perfectly. The old way, cash accounting, is kind of like just looking in your wallet. You know what you have right this second, but that's about it. The new way, accrual accounting, well, that's like checking your wallet, but also looking at all your upcoming bills and the paychecks you know are coming. You see the full picture. Money you've earned but haven't received yet, and expenses you owe but haven't paid yet. It's just a much more honest way of looking at things.
And look, this isn't just about accountants getting excited over spreadsheets. The official goal, right here, says it all. It's about boosting accountability, transparency, and comparability. Really, when you boil it all down, this whole massive project is about building and keeping public trust.
So, who exactly has to play by these new rules? Pretty much the entire public sector machine. We're talking the federal government, all the state governments, statutory bodies, local authorities, the whole shebang. But it's also really important to know who's not on this list. Government-linked companies, or GLCs. They operate under a different set of standards.
Okay, so you've decided to make this massive change. How do you actually pull it off? Let's get into the rollout. Section 1. Rolling out the changes. This is the blueprint for a huge nationwide financial upgrade.
As you can see from this timeline, this was definitely not a flip of a switch situation. Before 2015, everything was pretty much cash-based. Then, starting in 2015, the government kicked off this huge, planned transition. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and it's still ongoing. It requires enormous investment in new IT systems and, maybe even more importantly, in training people how to use them. So what does this actually change in the real world? Well, take a look. MPSAS 17, for example, is all about how you value massive public assets. Think roads, bridges, hospitals. MPSAS 23 deals with how you account for income from things like taxes. And MPSAS 25, wow, this one is a game changer. It forces the government to report long-term costs like pensions for civil servants right now, not decades down the road. It makes future promises visible today.
Okay, so that's a ton of work. You have to ask, what's the big reward? Why go through all this trouble? Let's talk about that. Section 2. The benefits of clarity, and why this massive effort is totally worth it.
You really get 4 huge wins here. First, transparency. Everybody gets a much clearer, more honest view of the government's financial health. Second, accountability. This means as a citizen, you get a much better look at how your tax dollars are being managed. Third, it leads to better decisions, because leaders now have the complete, reliable data they need. And finally, it puts Malaysia on the same page as the rest of the world, which is great for things like investor confidence. But let's be real for a second. A change of this scale is never, ever easy. There are always going to be obstacles. So let's look at the other side of the coin. Section 3. Overcoming the hurdles. And the challenges are pretty significant. First, just the data. I mean, can you imagine trying to put an accurate price tag on every single government building, every road, every naval ship in the country? It's a gigantic task. Then you've got the people problem. You need to retrain thousands of accountants in a totally new way of thinking. You've got the massive cost of upgrading all the technology. But honestly, the biggest hurdle might just be changing the culture. Getting people who have done things one way for decades to embrace a completely new process. So, after all that, where does that leave us? Let's bring it all home and talk about the bottom line. Section 4, the bottom line on MPSAS, and where things stand right now.
The key thing to understand is that this is still very much a work in progress. It's not a mission accomplished situation. The rollout is ongoing, and you have the Accountant General's Department constantly working to help all the different government bodies get on board, stay compliant, and integrate everything smoothly. But here's the most important takeaway from all of this. MPSAS is so much more than just a boring accounting update. It is a foundational step, a cornerstone in modernizing how Malaysia is governed.
It's about building in the financial discipline needed to be strong and prosperous for the long term.
And so that's what I want to leave you with. Now that we have this much clearer, much more honest financial picture, what are the new, maybe even tougher questions that we as citizens can and should be asking about how our nation's money is being spent?